So I could see in the near future more and more medical devices and non-medical devices supporting Wi-Fi 6E and 7 technology and therefore improving the overall experience of the network. I'm absolutely excited about the future that Wi-Fi is bringing to the healthcare space and the reliability that comes along with it.
The stakes are high for connectivity in hospitals, and we're going to learn more about that today on The Signal. Hey, this is Martha DeGrasse here again for Wi-Fi Alliance, and this is The Signal, our podcast where we bring you the inside track on Wi-Fi. These are meant to be smart conversations with industry leaders. We want to deliver a new perspective on the growing portfolio of Wi-Fi technologies that we see changing the connectivity landscape. Now, in this episode, we are super excited to talk about how 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi is impacting the healthcare industry. And for that, we're joined by Matt Pekarske. He is Principal of Connectivity and Service Integration Technologies at GE Healthcare. Matt, welcome to The Signal.
Thank you, Martha. I appreciate the opportunity to share what's going on with Wi-Fi in the healthcare space.
Yeah, it's a really, really important topic. You recently wrote a blog post about it for the Wi-Fi Alliance blog. That's The Beacon, and we are going to link to that post in the show notes. But I thought you did a good job of touching on the different arenas in a hospital setting, particularly where Wi-Fi is important. It's the devices that need to be connected, but then also the people that need to be connected, the patients and the many people who come to visit them. And then I think also a lot of times doctors are texting one another on their phones about urgent care issues, and that also may be on Wi-Fi. So there are a lot of different things that Wi-Fi needs to do in the hospital. So it would be great if you could kind of start off by going a little bit more into why Wi-Fi in 6 gigahertz is really helping with all those different kinds of use cases.
Yeah, no, you're making my job easy because you covered a lot of the points that are challenges for the healthcare space. I like to think of it as personnel and technology challenges. So on the personnel side, it's very obvious that there are staff shortages. And of those staff that are working in the healthcare space, they're close to burnout because they're working long hours and they're covering a lot of patients. And that is causing healthcare systems to have a greater emphasis on improving workflows associated with clinical staff, biomedical staff, IT staff, anything to make it more efficient and cover more patients. On the technology side, we've got thousands of devices that are connecting to the Wi-Fi network at any given time throughout the course of a day. And of those devices, a big portion of them are guest devices, which, oh, by the way, happens to be a really important metric for the quality of experience in a healthcare stay. So if your guest access is great, patients are going to rank your hospital high. If it's not so good, they're going to rank them low. For the medical devices, we have all kinds of different ones. There's low bandwidth streaming patient monitors. There's high resolution images from ultrasounds and X-ray. And now you're starting to hear even more devices that operate in the extended reality space, which consume even more bandwidth and latency. So as a medical device manufacturer at GE Healthcare, one of the things we worry about is the people that are connected to their devices and the loved ones that we know that are in the hospital at some point. So we know Wi-Fi has to be reliable. So we test the radio, the antenna, the software, make sure it's reliable. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes there are still problems with the infrastructure, and working with the Wi-Fi Alliance, really excited about the technology that's coming out, because when we make medical devices, it has to connect in all cases, and the Wi-Fi Alliance is helping us realize that.
And in particular, why is 6 gigahertz helpful?
6 gigahertz is great because it introduces more spectrum, and when you have more spectrum, that means you have more channels. And when you have more channels, that means you have more opportunities for your devices to connect. And that in turn reduces congestion or overloading of the network. So 6 gigahertz, we know that in the healthcare space, Wi-Fi is not decreasing in use, it's increasing. It's increasing at a market rate. So anything we can do to get more spectrum and more channels and improve the reliability of the Wi-Fi connection is going to be great for all the users in a healthcare space.
And do hospitals sometimes segment the traffic by channel, separating maybe the human traffic from the device traffic or anything like that?
Yeah, that's another really cool benefit with 6 gigahertz technology is IT departments can look at the device types that are connecting to their network and say, I want these medical devices to connect to these channels, and I want these non-medical devices like a doctor's phone or a nurse's tablet to connect to a different set of channels, and same thing with guest devices. So by segmenting all those channels, you can reduce your congestion even further and allow for clean and efficient and fast access to the Wi-Fi network. Another benefit of 6 gigahertz is you can do channel bonding. So you can bond many channels together and get even more bandwidth, or basically be able to send even more data through. So when you think of these augmented reality, extended reality, virtual reality applications, they need a lot of bandwidth to send that high resolution data through. So 6 gigahertz is enabling a lot of different applications in the healthcare space.
And some of those can be done dynamically, right? Like there's something going on, a surgery or a need for images quickly, bandwidth can be allocated real time, right? In some instances?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Well, you said that you are in the medical device business. So tell us a little bit about some of the devices that you're involved with and how they're using Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so we're developing what we like to call the Internet of Medical Things. So IOMT, and that involves wireless patient-centric devices that are streaming data to edge compute for processing real-time data. That allows us to send out timely alerts and keep the nurses and clinical staff aware of the patient status in real time, hundreds of milliseconds real time. In the future, you could imagine that data also flowing to the cloud for rich analytics to be run on a broad set of patients and be able to understand how effective is the clinical practice on a broad set of patients based on certain procedures that were applied. So yeah, we're doing that within GE Healthcare, and all those devices require low latency, sometimes high bandwidth, very secure communications and very reliable communications. And we think Wi-Fi can do that today, but with 6 gigahertz and Wi-Fi 6 and 7 technology advancements, we know that it'll become even stronger.
For sure. So if you're sending data to the edge for processing, you've got significant uplink traffic and then downlink traffic back to get to the nurses and doctors who need it, right? Are those pretty symmetrical, or do you see more going one direction than the other?
It really depends. Physiological data itself is relatively low bandwidth, but it's constant. So it's always going up to the edge compute. When devices need to discover one another, or maybe they get an update of some kind, they might get a large burst of information come down to them. So downlink might be high bandwidth, but over a short period of time. So it really depends on how systems are architected and how data flows throughout the ecosystem as to which direction it's going and how much bandwidth it's really using.
Sure. And are those edge nodes typically on the healthcare facility side, or maybe at a nearby data center, or some of both?
A little bit of both. We have the capability to deploy in both scenarios, both on-premise and in a data center remotely.
Okay, great. Well, you said a couple minutes ago that even now Wi-Fi is fairly capable, even before getting to Wi-Fi 6 and 7. And I think that's probably important because healthcare facilities probably have some big investments in some legacy equipment. Can you give us a little bit of information about integrating legacy devices into 6 gigahertz network?
Yeah, no, great question. One of the challenges with 6 gigahertz today is that it's not globally available. So there's no global harmonization that says everybody will use these frequencies around the world. So depending on what country you're in, your access point is going to support a certain set of channels. Now, fortunately, our network infrastructure providers, they do a great job at managing where those access points go so they're compliant to regulations. Now, the devices that connect to those networks, that's a different story. They also are monitored by regulations, but not all devices are capable of connecting on all channels in a given region. So when a healthcare IT department deploys 6 gigahertz APs, they also need to be mindful of the channels that the devices are connecting to also support. Because if you have a mismatch there, you can end up in a scenario where the infrastructure has all the channels supported, but the device doesn't, and the device might not connect in certain areas. So it's important to check that, both the access points and the devices that are connected to the network, to make sure that they're compatible with one another.
Okay, great. And what about HIPAA? Are legacy devices okay with data that might be sensitive, or is that better on Wi-Fi 6 and above?
Well, great question. With Wi-Fi 6 and 7, you're starting to see WPA3, which is the latest standard coming from the Wi-Fi Alliance, as being mandatory. And what that brings is really strong encryption and authentication mechanisms, which help prevent unauthorized access to medical data. So that really helps us when it comes to HIPAA compliance. Now, the challenges you're going to face is hospitals do not cycle through medical devices every 18 months like one might use with a smartphone. Sometimes they're in use for 7 to 10 years. So when they deploy the latest security on their infrastructure, they have to be mindful of the security mechanism that the device supports and then deploy it in kind of a mixed mode operation where you've got WPA3 available, but you also have WPA2, which is the previous version. And wait until all the devices that are connected to your network support the latest and greatest before going all in on the latest security modes.
Okay, that makes sense. And Wi-Fi now supports multi-link operation, right? Which can enable a device to make several connections to an AP, sort of a redundant connection for those supercritical communications, right? Do you see that being used in the hospital setting?
Absolutely. With multi-link operations, connecting on 2 different channels simultaneously, one could envision a medical device sending the same copy of data over 2 different frequencies. And if one of those channels goes down for whatever reason, maintenance, maybe somebody reconfigures something, that data still makes it to the receiving station. So it dramatically improves the reliability by sending multiple copies of the same data.
Okay, I'm sure that's important to them. And what about OFDMA, orthogonal frequency division multiple access? I think that started with Wi-Fi 6, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's another exciting advancement because what OFDMA allows us to do is it takes the channel and divides it up into smaller chunks of time and frequency called resource units. And the access points can dynamically assign those resource units based on the users that are connecting to the network. So if you pack all those resource units into the available capacity of the Wi-Fi access point in the healthcare facility, you can see a dramatic improvement in performance and efficiency and therefore reliability because the network is using only the airtime that it needs to use and nothing more or less.
All right. So let's look at the future a little bit. What are the upcoming advancements around 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi that healthcare professionals should anticipate?
Yeah, so for many reasons, healthcare facilities are constrained financially, regulatory, or on a technical side. So a lot of times you see the healthcare market, to be frank, not often being the bleeding edge of technology. And you have to wait for Wi-Fi 6E and 7 to be deployed on the infrastructure. But once the hospitals deploy that and they stay true to the "if you build it, they will come" mantra, devices will start supporting it too. So I could see in the near future more and more medical devices and non-medical devices supporting Wi-Fi 6E and 7 technology and therefore improving the overall experience of the network. So it'll be steps in time that we have to take together, but I'm absolutely excited about the future that Wi-Fi is bringing to the healthcare space and the reliability that comes along with it.
Right. And it sounds like you're doing a really good job getting healthcare professionals to advocate within their own organizations for how much of a difference this can make to patient outcomes, really.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with our customer base, IT departments, clinical staff, and talking about the latest in technology. And at the end of the day, they just want it to work. They want that data to arrive where it needs to do, and they don't want their clinical staff worrying about Wi-Fi. And that's the role we play in the industry today, is to make Wi-Fi as reliable as we possibly can.
Excellent. All right, Matt, anything else you want to share about Wi-Fi in the healthcare setting while we're here?
No, just thank you for the time. This has been a great conversation, and I'm super excited to see Wi-Fi technology get rolled out into our customer base. So thank you for the time.
Okay, Matt Pekarske, Principal of Connectivity and Service Integration Technologies at GE Healthcare. Thank you so much for being here, and that is our show. You can get the signal straight to your device through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or of course through the Wi-Fi Alliance. That's y-fi.org. I'm Martha DeGrasse, here for Wi-Fi Alliance. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next time for The Signal.